You're already dancing. I'm like waiting for the countdown. You're like behind the scenes. You're like rocking it out.
That's pretty cool music. I like that.
Oh, all right. Welcome to today's live lesson all about unwanted behaviors. I can't imagine anybody has any of those with a brand new puppy.
This is the expression for today. Ah!
Yeah. If any of you guys have done that before, where you're like ready to pull your hair out, there might have been a tear running down your cheek. Go ahead and let us, you went eek. Let us know if you've had any of those moments in the last, I don't know, couple of weeks since your puppy came home.
It's normal. It's normal. It doesn't mean it's easy. It's normal, but we can help you with some of these things.
Absolutely. All right. We are going to have a really good presentation for you. We will also be taking questions. We're going to try to aim for taking them at the end, but if they're applicable and we happen to be on a slide and we see the question come through, we will definitely dive in. But this one is this one's a good one. This one's a deep one. We have a lot of things to cover, so stick with us. Get your pen and paper out so you can take good notes because there's a lot to talk about when we talk about unwanted behaviors.
Michelle, I wanted to mention that these videos are available on replay. I get a number of questions about that. Maybe people can tune in at the beginning, but they got to go somewhere. They're like, oh, this was good stuff. It is going to be on the YouTube channel. And I think usually takes just a couple minutes after we finish. So you can go back and watch this with other family members. You can watch it again. It can kind of be pretty deep. So it's great stuff to review over and over again.
Absolutely. Always give us a hashtag replay when you guys are watching the replay. That just lets us know where you guys are at, what's going on with the videos we create for you guys. So, all right, without further ado, let's talk about it. Unwanted behaviors. I think before we dive into the deep stuff, let's just get the housekeeping out of the way. Who are you? Where are you watching us from, and how old's your puppy? Let's kind of get that started. Who's new here to either our channel or our group, because I know we're broadcasting in both our Puppy Training with Michele Lennon Facebook group, but I also know we're live on YouTube as well. So let us know in the comments.
It's so important to know just a little bit more, just the age of your puppy. Sometimes when we advise students in the pro level of our online course, we're always like, how long has he been home? It's such an important factor as well that maybe plays in, depends on the age, maybe doesn't. Yep. So I have a almost 3-year-old dog, and it doesn't really matter how long he's been home right now, but at like 12 weeks, it makes a difference.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you had some good questions, when he was younger. And they were, we did need to know information about how old he was and what was going on and how long he'd been home, because that does play a part in your training process.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much. You love the channel. Pup is almost 1. She's high energy. Okay, no worries. New here, puppy will be 1 in a year. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Okay. Western New York. Hey, I'm in Western New York as well.
He's your neighbor.
Practically neighbors. 9
Japanese. Okay, yeah, definitely. You're going to get a lot out of this presentation today, because a lot of these behaviors can come up at the young mark that you're like, I don't know what this means. I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah. All right, I mentioned a moment ago, we have a free Facebook group, Puppy Training with Michele Lennon. If you haven't joined it yet, we invite you to do so. There's a lot of information in that group about puppy training. It's kind of like, let's call it the library of puppy training. And Allison here happens to be one of our librarians. She will be pointing you in the right direction when you submit questions. You can also help yourself to any of the information in the group by using the search tool here. If you're on mobile, it's that little magnifying glass. Just type in a keyword that you need help with, and I guarantee you there'll be probably hundreds of posts with information available for you at your fingertips to take a look at, watch, read, peruse through. Mm-hmm. All right, how many of you guys are struggling with something? And if so, what are you struggling with? Tell me in the chat here, what are you guys struggling with your new pups? Or as we've seen here, a couple of them are a little bit older.
Yeah. Christina says the dog does not want to listen. We are going to get into that today.
Yes, we will.
Good stuff.
We'll talk about that for sure. New pup, 4-month-old lab. Okay.
Okay.
Maybe you guys.
Oh, I wonder if, I think that's Tiger Parker. I wonder if Tiger has seen our video on labs.
Oh, yes.
Such a good one. I did some of the research for that one, and you guys, I learned so much. I don't have a lab, but it was super interesting stuff that we learned about, a little bit of breed specific that you might want to know.
Well, this person, Chuck, you took a whole day off of work just to be with us? That's awesome. I love it.
I love Chuck.
Maybe that's not quite what you took the day off for, but we're going to go with that. Oh, we've got some biting and barking behaviors that people need help with. 12-week-old golden doodle. Very good. All right.
All right, let's help some people. Let's see what we can do. Should we just give them a warning that we may not be able to solve everything today, because this is, a step-by-step process? I just want to set some expectations.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're setting the expectations. We're going to cover a lot. We're going to give you helpful tips, but just know there's a lot more to it that's going on that you're going to be working through. So that's all we can give you for right this second. So stay tuned, because we're going through these things one at a time here. The things that we're going to cover are, unwanted behaviors that you might be, frustrated with. Biting, barking, jumping, digging, those kinds of things that I see some of you guys writing about in here in the chats. I just want you guys to know these aren't actually, they're unwanted only to the human, but they're actually natural behaviors for our dogs. Very normal behaviors. It'd be like, some of the things you're asking to fix would be kind of like us taking your nationality out of you. It's just, it makes up who you are. We can't do that, but we have to recognize what, the behavior is, and then figure out solutions to work through it together, you and your puppy. So that's what we're going to give you today. Most of the time we want to, if we can, either teach the puppy an alternative behavior, redirect them if they're like, say, chewing on your furniture. But just know it's not that we're going to try to stop it or suppress it, because it comes naturally to them. And if we attempt to take some of these things away that they naturally do, they're going to find other outlets for them that are less productive and positive. So we're gonna show you and teach you what you can do, like if your dog is barking or jumping or digging. So don't forget, our dogs don't know what we want them to do differently until we teach them differently. So keep that in mind. All right. How many of you guys, we're going to talk about digging for a moment here. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, but we're going to jump into digging the carpets, digging in your couch, digging holes in the backyard. Anybody here experiencing a digger? You have a digger on your hands.
There was somebody who asked a question yesterday in the Facebook group who had a digger, and it was on carpets, and couldn't even remove the carpet because it was a permanent part of the home, and we were really kind of helping her a little bit on what she could do, and she was kind of blocking off some access, but also then it came down to some training.
Yeah, that's it right there. We definitely want to know, again, natural behavior, especially for some breeds. Some breeds are more diggers than others. So terriers especially, trying to find and seek out like rodents and things like that. But just know this type of behavior is one that can help relieve stress. It can also be great for enrichment. And I know it can be annoying to us humans, but our dogs absolutely love it. So for example, we want to create then a place that's safe for our dogs to dig. And I know a lot of you guys, as we go through these unwanted behaviors, you're going to hear us say things that actually encourage the behavior, but in a very positive and productive way. It doesn't mean it's going to make the behavior any stronger. Remember, your dog already has this natural behavior in them. They want to do it. We're just putting them in a more positive place to do it. So for example, creating a dig pit in your backyard using a kiddie pool and some dirt or sand, or maybe you have an old sandbox that, whether your kids aren't using it anymore or it was left behind from a previous owner. You could even create inside your house a busy box filled with towels and things that you sprinkle kibble in. Not only is that great enrichment, but it's also a great way for your dog to dig. So digging is one of those things that if they're digging in the furniture or if they're digging in your carpets, redirect them to where they can dig, or give them outlets for this. Give them an opportunity for this outlet, I should say, throughout the day. You can't just tell them no. You have to tell them, okay, I see you want to do this. Let's give you a place to do it. And then when they're digging at things they're not supposed to, we might need to block off access to that. So if they're digging in the couch cushions, just make sure there's not extra snacks in there that somebody left behind, some crumbs and things that could be encouraging them to dig in there. Or if they're digging at the carpet, you might need to block off access to that area and redirect them to where they can dig instead. Mm-hmm. Did you ever have this problem with Lincoln, Elson?
He does love to dig. He's kind of got some terrier in him. And so I think he would be great at like finding little rodents, but we don't really have that opportunity in the suburbs. So right. He has this toy called an iDig, and I know it's something that you recommend. It was a little bit of an investment, but I got to tell you, we've had it for, I think, a year and a half now. Completely stands up to time. It is just absolutely in great shape. And we usually bring it out maybe a couple times a week, kind of keep it novel. Oh, he just goes crazy. He likes to find treats, or we just put kibble in there. Or if like he has a whimsy, then we'll hide the whimsy in there. And I think you mentioned once that like, isn't digging like good for their ab development? Like it's good for their muscles.
Yeah, shoulder muscles, core muscles for sure. Yeah, that's definitely a great activity for, keeping our pups in shape. I love that you provided Lincoln too with the appropriate toy. I know that we've got some in the comments here. Like this one says, my friend, she likes to dig at the sofa. Debbie says, my dog loves to dig as well. Shari says yes as well. So it's natural, normal behavior, but giving them that right outlet to be able to dig is so important. Now, the other thing to keep in mind too is your dog's play style or their activity level or their interest. The reason I say this is because we're going to tell you something that might come as a little surprise. Lincoln actually likes to dig in we know what I'm going for here, Allison?
Are you talking about a blanket?
Yeah, his blanket, right? Uh-huh. And so this is a very specific blanket that you've given Lincoln
just one
for just this purpose. But she also knows that Lincoln's not going to eat the blanket. And so that's where we say sometimes just knowing your dog's play style, interaction style, like if your dog is a chewer and an eater, a consumer of the things that they're chewing, then the blanket might not be the right fit for you guys. Mm-hmm. And for Lincoln, though, it is.
It works for him, but it's also not an unsupervised activity. It's not like, here's your blanket, you go play. It's like I take like his whimsy or like a treat and I'll kind of roll it up in the blanket and I'll put it down. And then I'll say, where to go? And then he'll dig and he'll find it, but I'm right there. And so when we were first kind of doing this, if I started to notice that he was chewing the blanket or kind of, starting to gnaw on it, I'd be like, kind of redirect. And then I would encourage him to do the digging. So it continues to be a very human and canine activity because I don't want it to turn into something that is dangerous for him.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We gotta keep safety in mind always when we are giving our dogs things that potentially could be dangerous. Mm-hmm. All right, so I feel like we got a good handle on some digging, at least giving you some guys some ideas on what to do differently, and just know that it's a natural behavior. But what about this next one? This one's like all hands are probably going to go up. I just know it. I absolutely feel like this is the one. Yes. How many of you guys are dealing with a little land shark?
Well, furry crocodile.
Crocodile. I think on our YouTube channel, under the community section, we actually had a poll. Was your puppy a goldfish? Where they just, move the little lips? Were they a piranha? Were they a great white land shark? Were they a snapping turtle? So you guys can check that out on our channel after a while. But how many of you guys have a Ruth? Yes.
Ruth is right there.
Exclamation point.
Yeah.
Maria, we will get to the jumping. That one's coming for sure. All right. So here's the deal. Biting. Oh my gosh. This can be one of the most frustrating ones because it hurts the most, right? So this is one of those things that, again, natural, normal behavior for our dogs. We're not going to just tell them, no, they can't do it. We're going to give them the proper outlets for it. And the reason is because if we don't, they're going to chew on things we don't want them to chew on, like our furniture or even, again, humans. It does start typically at an early age because of teething. So you might see this start at 9 weeks, 10, 12 weeks, somewhere in there when the teething begins. And it could go all the way through at about 6 months. If you're seeing chewing or biting, I should say, past that, we have to consider that we might, as the human, be accidentally reinforcing the behavior by how we're engaging with the puppy. So this could be our hands moving, we are taking a treat and trying to give it to them and pulling away. So there's some things to consider there, but it is definitely instinctive for them to nip and bite, especially at fast moving things. So if you are playing with them or petting them, and your hand is coming at them, hands smell amazing. They smell, like salts from your hands, treats. The good things are always being delivered by your hands. So it's natural then for our dogs to go, hey, what's in your hand? Or, hey, fast moving thing, let's chase it. This also comes into play if you have kids. Kids tend to be the big target because they move more sporadically. They have higher, squeakier tones. If your kids are a little cautious or maybe even afraid of the puppy, they might be running away, which is actually encouraging the puppy to chase and nip after them at the back of their legs or their ankles, sometimes even jumping up and biting at them. So you're kind of in this phase where you're teaching both the human, the kids, the adults too, and the puppy what to do differently. So first, I think it's important to identify that. What do you want your puppy to do differently? And then do they know how to do that differently? And if not, then we have to teach them. We have to guide them and point them in the right direction with lots of reinforcement of the things we want them to do. In module 1 of our 30-Day to Puppy Perfection program, we have a lesson called Bump It. We actually like to teach the bump it instead of bite it game with our puppies so that they understand they don't need to use their teeth to engage with us. So that might be one thing that you can do. The other thing is making sure that you're always prepared with something to put in their mouth. And so every time if you know your puppy is going to bite you as soon as you walk in the room, making sure you already have that thing for them to be redirected to is going to be key. This includes, things like long rope toys that are much easier for you to hold on to and at a nicer distance away from your puppy's sharp teeth. So I would be using a rope toy, a flirt pole, something like that to engage with. Ellison, did you want to talk about this teething phase?
Yeah. Once I kind of got my brain around it, it was really kind of this aha moment of, in that very first year of a dog's life, they get all these baby teeth, then they lose them all, then all the adult teeth come in. It takes like 20 years for humans to go through that entire process. And you know how babies are when they're teething, they're cranky, they're crying, they're challenging to kind of console. And that's just a few at a time. Like these puppies, some puppies lose like a tooth a day. That is so much movement in a short period of time. And so you can only understand how uncomfortable it must be when you think of that. And I think canines have even more teeth than we do, don't they?
What is it? Is it
42?
42. Yeah, I believe it's 42.
Yeah, it's just a lot. It's just so much movement. And even when the teeth are all gone and the new ones are in, there's still just a lot of repositioning as their jaw is growing and their head is growing. So I always just really try to think about it in terms of that little pup is just experiencing a lot of discomfort and they just have no words to communicate it. And they just act in the way that is instinctual for them. Just, I'm just so frustrated,
Yeah.
But you just have to kind of have a lot of patience and understand what they might be going through internally in terms of that discomfort.
Yeah. So if you guys are experiencing this, and most of you are, we're seeing that in the comments here, the biting, number one, have the things available that your puppy can chew on. So we talked about the rope toy, we talked about a flirt pole, the Kong or the Westpaw Topo filled with some tasty stuff. You can either freeze it, or if your pup doesn't like the frozen texture, just put it in the fridge for a little while. That can really help soothe those sore gums. I'm going to have Caitlin, one of our team members, share in the comments a link to our Kong video because it has some really good ideas for fillers. Everybody's always like, what do I put in that thing? There's some great ideas in that video. And then the other thing too is we do have a bunch of videos on our YouTube channel that are related, like really focused in on biting, because the other thing that we didn't talk about, we have a whole bunch of other unwanted behaviors we want to get to, but one of the things is your puppy's likely biting more either when they first wake up or when their battery's drained, we call it, so like they've been out for a while, they've both been overstimulated, they've played for a bit, and now they might be overtired and ready for that nap. So the schedule is really what I'm talking about here. And that's something to consider for all of these unwanted behaviors. If you're seeing more unwanted behaviors, check that schedule. Inside our new puppy starter kit, it's a free resource for you guys as new puppy owners. You might want to take a look at just how to put a sample schedule together. It's really insightful to see that the day is kind of made up of these blocks of time. And within those blocks of time, we want to make sure our puppy's needs are being met. They get the right outlets for the release of pent up energy. They get enriching activities. They get cool down periods. They get naps. Yes, naps.
So many
oh my
naps.
goodness, that's a big one.
I also just wanted to mention that I love what you mentioned about, having a Kong, maybe put it in the freezer, maybe put it in the fridge. There's a lot of variety in what we can do to help our puppies, and not everything works for every dog, or might not work on Tuesday, but it could work better on Thursday. So you really have to do some experimenting. And, if maybe your dog didn't really go for the Kong at first, that doesn't mean that it's a permanent thing. Could be you need a little bigger one. Maybe the West Paw Top would be better. So really do a lot of trial and error, and kind of think about this as, I need to kind of be a little detective here and figure out what are my dog's preferences for chewing. Do they like a little softer thing like the Kong that's more like they have the blue and the pink ones that are a little bit softer? Do they like a little harder one? It's really going to vary. But if you kind of look at this as, I'm going to do some investigation and see what works for my dog right now, then I think you'll really come up with some good ideas.
Yeah. Maria said she went through a lot of bully sticks. So yeah, bully sticks, Nyla bones, Benabones, marrow bones. Those are other things that you can give your pup to chew on instead of you, or bite on instead of you, or your furniture. So just have a variety.
Yeah.
One thing that really helps is novelty. Introducing things through, just not giving them everything all at once, because then it's going to become a little boring, and then they're going to be like, oh, well, you're still more exciting. I mean, you're always going to be more exciting, but if you create novelty in your toys, that could be really to your benefit, because then the pup's more interested in that. Add movement too. I know a lot of people are like, yeah, I gave my dog the bone and they didn't do anything. They just went back towards me. Well, that's where we do have to evaluate what time of day is it. Check the schedule. Are they due for the nap? But also, if you just gave it to them and it's not exciting enough, they're going to go back to you because you are moving and you have more scent to you. So for those things like the Nyla bone or the Benabone, you can put it in the dog food bag overnight. It adds more scent to it. But then also when you go to give it to them, add a little movement. Shimmy it around, shake it around, then add it, then try to give it to them.
Yeah, I will tie those things to the flirt pole and kind of move it around. Also, Lincoln will fetch anything. So things that he loves to chew, he also loves to fetch. So that really adds an element of excitement, and it's a little bit different. But we have a pretty good rotation going on of lots of different things, because he really seems to get excited by novelty. And then we'll put the thing away, reintroduce it at some other time. I have half chewed things, sticks and bully sticks and whimsies, like half chewed, just because we've kind of gotten a good use out of it for a day or two or even less, and then try something new.
Then it goes away. Yeah, I love what you said too. Change the things out at the end of your flirt pole.
Yeah.
That's a really helpful tip as well. Yeah, it comes with one if you buy one, or you can make your own, but add a variety of different things on there if you're out.
I did not know that. I'm like, he's really interested in the flirt pole. How come everybody loves the flirt pole? I'm like, he's not really chasing the little straps on the flirt pole. And then I'm like, oh, I wonder if we should tie something to the flirt pole. And now when I start to tie something to it, he gets super excited and he wants to get all up right there. And he's really, because he knows that what's about to happen is it's going to start moving.
I love it. You do learn what your dog's preferences are as well when you change things up. Some dogs, like Allison was saying earlier, it might not go well right now. They might not like it now. They might like it later. But if you try different things, you're going to see maybe your dog is in a phase right now where they do want softer things. Or maybe they're in a phase right now where they want harder things. So try variety and see what your dog is into and use that to your advantage.
Yeah. I mean, there's there's no end to the amount of products that are out there in the stores and online. So it's good to try a few things and then experiment with them later if they didn't go so well the first time. Don't toss them. Don't get rid of them. You never know. Sometimes old toys that like Lincoln doesn't really go for, they will then become my busy box filler. And he doesn't really like engage with them, but he's happy to like move them around as he's looking for kibble.
Yep. All right. I think we're going to move on to the next one. This one's another big one. We get a lot of questions about how many of pups either jump on you or jump on counters or your coffee table. We call them counter surfers. These are the dogs that are really interested in seeing what's up there. And if they get something, they've been reinforced for that behavior. So they're going to do it more and more. Now, the thing to recognize is this is a natural behavior for your dog to explore. They're using that nose, which is like 40 times stronger than ours. So anything up on a counter is going to be, pique their curiosity. It could be a dish towel or a sponge, or you left the bread bag up there or something. Anything that, that they could get it down. This means that they've gotten that reinforcement. They're going to do it again and again. So we call that accidental reinforcement. It certainly wasn't your intention to allow that behavior. But here's the deal. In order to work on counter surfing or dogs that like to jump up on any kind of counters, we're going to have to first identify what we want them to do differently. And it's not enough to say, well, Michelle, I don't want them to jump on the counter anymore. That's kind of part of it. But the bigger part of it is telling me what you want them to do differently. Do you want them to go lay down on a bed when they enter that room? Would you prefer that they just sit in and maybe hang out with you or lay by your feet while you're cooking or whatever it may be? You have to identify that first, because then you're going to start to put the plan together to teach them how to do that, to teach them how to go to their bed on cue when you are doing something in the kitchen or, anybody enters that room. A good example, I like the one that you share, Allison, about teaching Lincoln to go to his mat. Do you want to talk about the time you were cooking the hamburger?
This was a great idea. I was like, I definitely want to teach Lincoln some manners in the kitchen. He's a small dog, so we don't have the problem with counter surfing, but he can get underfoot. And I would hate to be tripping on him or drop something hot on him. And so I'm like, okay, I need to figure out what I want him to do in the kitchen. He tended to hang out on the little mat that you have by your sink, and he didn't chew it after maybe about 6 months. So we could have it there. So I'm like, okay, well, I think I'll use that as his kind of place in the kitchen. So I thought, okay, I'm going to teach him how to stay on that spot. You know what? I need to do some cooking. I need to brown that hamburger. So I'm just going to do these two things at the same time. This was a complete... No. I was like, why is this not working? And it was really 100% what you say in terms of turning up that dial of distractions too high. Like I had put him in a situation where it was just too exciting for him to learn. Now, eventually he will be able to do that, but it wasn't the learning moment that was good for him. So I realized this, and then I pulled way back. And so then I started working with him to stay on that little mat when I was doing something less exciting, like just kind of moving around. And then I slowly built up. And now it really is a habit of his that when he's in the kitchen, he stays on that little mat, which helps me feel like I'm not going to step on him. And now he can do it when I'm cooking hamburger, but he could not do it at first. It took me a couple weeks of pretty consistent training to get up to that point.
Yeah, I like how you described that. You had to create different stages of the training process. This would be like, teaching, can our kindergartners do algebra today? No, they have to go through those different stages of learning different math, formulas and things like that to be able to get to that point. So asking your dog to go lay on a mat while you're cooking something amazingly aromatic to them, not going to work. That's cranking that training dial up and expecting the kindergartner to do algebra.
Yeah.
Can some maybe.
I really did start with these baby steps where it was first like, okay, please go there. Thank you. Good boy. That kind of thing. And then it was go there. I'm going to just move around. And, there was nothing exciting happening. And then eventually like you go on your mat and I'm just going to open the fridge, which already is a little bit more scent, but not as strong as a hamburger. And then we just kind of added from there. I'm going to take broccoli out. Not as savory as hamburger, but still a food, so it really kind of worked up to that point where he was like slowly able to be successful. And then the more he did it, it just built this habit. And then of course he was getting lots of treats at the time. So he was like, okay, I get it. I can do this. And it really felt so much better. Like, oh, we're working together. We're both on the same page. It was a much more rewarding experience for both of us when I took it slow.
Yeah, we definitely believe very much in going slow and steady. Like what you just described there was not done in a day. It wasn't done in a week. It took a couple weeks, I think, to get to that point.
It did.
And that's something to keep in mind, your mindset about the training process. We do have to go at our pup's pace. Our human brain always wants to go faster. We want to get to the finished product. We want to see the finished result. Except for in situations like this, if we go too fast, our pup is going to constantly fail, so to speak, because they're going to get up, they're going to move around, and you're going to wait. I didn't release you. I didn't say free, break, done, okay, whatever your release word is, because the distraction was too high, because you were trying to move a little too fast through the process. Mm-hmm. So when you guys are working through what we call the pre-training phase, that's really what this is. We're teaching the skills ahead of time before we actually need to use it. We got to go slow and steady, and at a pace that our pup understands clearly what the goal is here.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember if it's coming up on a future slide, but one of the things that was so important about that process is that when I did need to cook hamburger or real food, he was not in the kitchen because we hadn't gotten to that point, and I didn't want to set him up to fail. And so then we would block off the kitchen entirely as we were training. When he wasn't ready for it, then we didn't want him to experience it and to fail. And that was something I really love about the advice that I got from you was we want to set our puppies up for success. So we're not going to ask the kindergartners to do algebra. And then they're like, I don't get it. We're not. We're going to set them up for success by bringing them along slowly. And so that was one thing I did. You're like, well, how did you cook at all during that time, Allison? Well, he was not in the kitchen at all when we cooked until he was able to do it. And then that was the successful part.
And the same thing kind of applies to, we've got, I know a lot of people are thinking, but my dog jumps now and I'm not cooking. I'm just entering the room. If you're not ready to kind of be in training mode, like Allison said, manage the environment. So block off access to that kitchen, and outside of the time that you need him to do the thing, you've got to be working on this. Set aside that actual time to work on teaching the skill that you want him to be really good at in that environment.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a lot like coaches kind of teaching, maybe teaching somebody how to do a cartwheel, and they just really are careful not to let people do it the wrong way, because it just builds this habit of, it's really kind of hard to undo it. So they're really good at no, we're going to teach it slow and steady, but I don't want you to go too fast and then learn the wrong way, because then it'll be hard to undo that. So preventing that is going to be really important.
Yeah, that kind of goes about the what do we do about these unwanted behaviors? Good segue in there, Allison. Honestly, this is about adjusting your mindset just a little bit, because a lot of people are like, I just want the behavior to stop. And we talked at the very beginning about some of these behaviors. They're just natural, normal things for our dogs to do. It's in them. We can't take it out of them. We can't try to suppress it, because it's going to peek up and pop out at other places in your dog's life. The digging thing, if you say no digging, well, if you try to say no digging in the backyard, guess what? They're going to come inside and try to dig again at the couch cushions or the rugs or things like that. We want to make sure that we're constantly redirecting to an alternative activity, and of course, make that new activity fun. It's not enough to just, again, give them the toy that you're redirecting them to because they were biting on you. Add the movement, add sound, add scent to it in some way to make it more interesting. We talk about restricting access to the trigger, the thing that really gets them going, gets them excited, overstimulated, whatever it may be. So that might be putting a baby gate up, or keeping them in a puppy pen while the kids are running around playing. Or actually, one of our pro level students, Joan, you want to hear that story?
I love this story.
Go ahead.
So Joan babysits her grandkids a couple of days a week, and she has Sammy. And she was like, oh, I can't really let Sammy get involved in the art project that they're doing. It's not safe for him. So she was getting the pen out to help Sammy have his own space. Well, the grandkids thought that was amazing and they wanted to be in the pen. And so she put the pen all around the grandkids, who were then kind of continuing to work on their art project on the floor. And then Sammy was on the other side of the pen. Sammy was like, okay, this works for me. It's the most adorable picture where he's literally just laying there and he's watching them. He's very calm. There's a fence where he can see them, but he can't get to, the glue and the glitter and all of that. And the grandkids are just thinking this is amazing. So pens can work in lots of different ways.
Love it. That was so cute. When she submitted that picture, I was like, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Love it.
I think everybody was surprised by that, including her, but we were all like, yeah, hey, that really works.
Very good. Let's see here. We've talked about restricting the access. Rewarding. We've got to get into the mindset of rewarding the behavior that you want to see more of. We constantly get into this mindset of, no, stop it, cut it out, leave it, enough. And then sometimes we even go, bad dog. The dog isn't being bad. They're doing their, again, natural behaviors. We as the human have these expectations sometimes that we want them to do something different, but we've not taught them different. We've not reinforced the behaviors that we want to see more of enough. So keep that in mind. Your puppy is not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. If you find that your puppy keeps repeating them, doing those unwanted behaviors, and you keep saying things like, they know better, I can promise you with certainty, if they knew better, they would do better. They don't, which is why they keep reverting back. Or sometimes, again, natural behavior kicks in.
Mm-hmm. So there was a comment in the group over the weekend where somebody was saying that they feel like they say off on repeat, off the counters, off the furniture, off the people, off the this, off that. And I was like, all right, so it sounds like we need to kind of back up on that, because that's going to get a little overused and less effective over time, pretty short time.
Yeah, what our dogs can learn sequences very quickly. So it could be a matter of you say off, they get the treat, and then you turn around and they go jump up again and you say off and they get the treat and they're like, oh, this is easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Let me keep doing this. Yeah. So one other thing to keep in mind too is, remember we talked about a few moments ago, checking those puppy batteries, right? That's really you just knowing like how long they've been awake and if they need a nap or if they've just woken up and they need an outlet to get rid of pent up energy. Mm-hmm. We have this picture over here of our pro level workbook, one of the pages out of it. If you find that your puppy keeps repeating some certain behaviors, it may be important for you then to keep track of what those triggers are that could potentially be leading to this repeated unwanted behavior. Mm-hmm. Like I said before, a common one is kids running through the house or just kind of getting down too low on the dog's level and getting them all riled up and excited. So if the trigger then is the kids, we have to help the kids understand that they need to stand taller, maybe not move their hands so sporadically, instead give the kids something to have in their hands that the dog can engage with. So noting that on your page, on your chart, can be really helpful.
Yeah, that was just going to say, one of the things I love about this trigger tracker is it kind of forces you to think of some things that you may not realize are relevant. And one of the things that it mentions is, what's the time of day? How long has it been since a meal? How long until the next meal? How long has the dog been awake? I remember we had somebody who was asking about a dog who was doing a lot of jumping. So we were kind of trying to dig in with that a little bit. Well, what time of day is it happening? And with just a little bit of time of tracking kind of the environment, it turns out that dog jumped a lot right before he had to poo. That was his way of like, there's something going on in my body. I think I need to do something, but his little brain just didn't quite know exactly what to do with that yet. And so once she learned those signals, she got much better at saying, okay, this is the dog telling me that something is happening. I need to respond. So the trigger tracker helps us do that in a way that we can see patterns.
Yeah. Yeah. You do see patterns. I think that's something that's really huge. It's the behavior your dog is displaying. It's not for no reason. There's something going on, and it could be your dog displaying, stress, anxiety, overwhelm, excitement, overstimulation. Like there's something that's happening. And that's one of the things over at pro level of our course, where we get the opportunity to really talk through on our group Zoom calls with our students, we really talk through what's going on, and we can ask a series of questions, and our students then give us information back, and we're like, oh, that's why that's happening. Like a good one, something that happened the other day, we were talking with somebody who their dog was becoming more barky. And we were noticing that we asked some questions, and the woman's like, oh, we're actually moving, and there are a bunch of moving boxes. And so, put all the pieces of the puzzle together, and we're like, oh, okay, so the dog needed a little bit more exercise and enrichment during the day, definitely needed more naps and cool down. So a cool down activity like licking or chewing before they go in the crate. And then the stress of the boxes. So anytime we have a change in the environment, our dogs can become very, stressed or overwhelmed, or there could be any change in their behavior because of the change in the environment. So when we kind of pointed those things out, they were like, oh, that makes sense. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. It seems kind of subtle to us, but, mentally we understand what's happening. Oh, boxes moving. Okay. This all makes sense. It just doesn't make sense to a dog. We often talk about like costumes, like Halloween costumes. Can you imagine trying to explain that to a dog? The dog is like, why are we doing this? Now, that doesn't mean we can't kind of help them tolerate a little bow tie or a hat for a cute picture or something, but it just doesn't make sense to them.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that we talked about pre-training too, right? Helping teaching your dog what you want them to do instead. One of the things that we've been really focusing on with our students is teaching them all about the prevention is key technique, just the mindset. So these unwanted behaviors that you guys are experiencing with your dogs, whether it's jumping or biting on the leash or chasing the cats or getting on the furniture, running out the door, chasing the kids, whatever it may be, it's oftentimes that you see the behavior and then you try to intervene and you try to, okay, what do I do now? How do I fix it? How do I stop it? What we want you to do is get into the mindset of, let's move this over here to prevention. How can we prevent that from happening? So another good example is a dog that's barking at you. They're trying to figure out, or they're trying to alert you to something. And you've discovered that it's actually the ball that's getting stuck under the couch, and then they keep coming over to you and they're barking at you. So instead of waiting till the ball gets stuck for them to start the barking, make sure that you're present there. You're engaging with them, and you get the ball before the barking happens. If we do it after, what the dog is learning is the sequence of I bark, they go get the ball, then they throw it. So I'm just gonna keep barking. Then they're gonna go get it. They're gonna throw it. And sometimes what happens is they might just start to come over to you and bark because the ball's not there. They're like now looking for the ball, whether it was stuck under the couch or it was put away. And then you go, oh, I want to get the ball and engage with them. That's where the reinforcement happens, when you go get the ball or you engage with them. So be careful, because sometimes we as humans, we accidentally reinforce these behaviors and not even realize it. Mm-hmm. And this is where, again, getting ahead of the curve, getting ahead and preventing these things from happening. So blocking off access to things they're jumping on, and or, of course, teaching them some other behaviors, sitting to say hi, laying next to the couch instead of jumping all over it. Chasing the cats. Are the cats in a safe place? Has the dog been properly introduced to the cat? So we do have a video on that. I could spend a whole hour just going into how to introducing the cat.
Probably should someday. Yeah, these cats is a pretty frequent topic.
Yeah, I'll have Caitlin share the link to that video if you guys are experiencing that. Same thing with barking. Same thing with pulling on the leash. There's so many things that we could get into and be here for a couple more hours. I know we only have a few minutes left, but those other videos that we have on these topics, phenomenal. Our entire YouTube channel is chock full of really valuable videos that could at least get you started. And then, of course, the course takes you further. The videos on our YouTube channel are all about the what to do. And then our course is about the how to do it, the actual steps you see us demonstrating with dogs, what to do, how to do it, that kind of thing.
Just remember, I can be your librarian. There's so many videos. Sometimes you're like, where do I go to find out? So just ask in the Puppy Training with Michele Lennon group, and I can point you to a video that might help you with your question.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to point out to ncorn0011, the chat's still going on. We will be taking some questions kind of at the end of our presentation. So if you have a question about your collie, you can go ahead and submit it here in the comments, and then we'll just go back through towards the end of our time together and just make sure we can look through any additional questions.
Yeah. All right. How many of you guys have ever thought, I'm just going to wait until my dog is a little more mature before, I start doing anything. They're going to grow out of it. How many of you guys have ever thought that? Or maybe you've heard somebody else say that. I know that's a pretty common one we hear. Oh, my dog's biting. They'll grow out of it. Oh, my dog is jumping. They'll grow out of it. And we're always like, we're sitting over here biting our own nails going, oh my gosh, this is not how it goes down. It's actually going to get worse.
It does, the more that they do it. And also many of your dogs, I'm looking at you guys with lab owners, these dogs get big. They get big, they get heavy, they get strong. So it's a lot harder to maybe contain a jumping lab who is 85 pounds than a puppy who is maybe 15 pounds. So kind of getting that muscle memory and that training done when you can still have an easier time containing them with puppy gates and pens, and that pays off. Like there is a timing issue that is better earlier.
Yeah, we are definitely in the phase where we're working on, our puppies are growing and developing right now. You're working on teaching them what you want them to do differently. So ultimately, this is going to take some time. There's not like, I know this is the thing you're looking for sometimes is like what's the quick fix? What's the one thing I could do? We get that question about 100 times a day. Just tell me the one thing to fix the problem. And we say, ooh, look at this pie chart. It's actually 60% of it's probably the training that you're going to teach the puppy what to do. 30% of it's the time that you're either putting in, or at times the time it takes for them to grow and mature. And then 10% of it is actually the tools. Mm-hmm. With that being said, though, we have to make sure that the tools that you're using aren't aversive. So we don't want to use any aversive techniques to try to get our puppy to stop doing that unwanted behavior. Why don't we use aversive techniques? Things like shaker cans or squirt bottles or worse, right? Any kind of collar that's going to cause harm. Partially because trying to correct the behavior is never going to teach the dog what you want them to do instead. Inflicting pain to try to stop a problem is never going to get your dog to go, oh, I know what to do instead. It's actually going to cause more fear, and your puppy's not going to trust you as much. And then, situations like, let's just say they bolt out the door, and now you're calling, come here, come on, come. And then you're starting to get a little frustrated with them. Who's going to come back to that? Who's going to come back to somebody who's using force, fear, or pain to try to get their dog to do something?
It's just making your job so much harder, and it's really going to impact your relationship with your dog, which is just a lifelong thing. You just really want to get off on the right path with that one and make sure that you guys have a strong bond that includes trust and a love that is not part of fear and punishment.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the training industry is not well regulated. So there are a lot of trainers out there that are still promoting these old school compulsion techniques or fear-based style techniques. The good news is that, science is coming a long way and proving that those techniques are actually causing a lot of what we call fallout. So problems down the road. So in the moment, it might seem like it's working. It's almost like reinforcing for the human to go, well, see, that thing I did worked. When actually it's not really working. It's more or less suppressing the behavior. And if you think about it like an iceberg, if you take an iceberg and you push it down under the water or attempt to try to, suppress it, at some point it's going to slip and it's going to go and it's going to explode. We've seen this when people have attempted to use aversive techniques to try to stop biting. I don't even want to get into saying what they are, but they're not good. You see them a lot all over Facebook and in social media. Some scary things that people do to try to stop a behavior. The fallout we see with that also is like, why did the puppy bite the kid in the face? Why did the puppy rip the kid's hand open. So we see a lot of people, saying things like that, where their kids are getting hurt because the adult tried to suppress the behavior, or even the kids saw the adult doing it, so they tried to do the same thing. It's not good. It's not safe. It's not healthy. It's not building trust. It's just, building distrust, really, losing trust. Mm-hmm. The dogs do not want to work with you anymore. And then they feel like they always have to kind of be on guard and protect themselves and their space, right? We don't want that. I think this goes along too with this mindset of, if you ever thought your puppy is stubborn. I hear this one. I feel like we could be millionaires, Allison, if we got $1 for every time we heard my puppy is so stubborn, and then they say, what it is that their puppy won't do or isn't doing well. What I want to tell you is that your puppy is not stubborn. What you're seeing is a display of confusion, lack of motivation, not enough reinforcement for the things that you do want to see more of. And oftentimes they're overwhelmed or flooded with information. They can't process anything anymore. So we have this little picture of our logo dog, Monty, kind of in this down position with a leash on, which represents the times that you're probably going out with your puppy and they just lay down and seem as if they're refusing to move. Maybe you've taken them out for a walk. Maybe you're just trying to get them out to go potty in the backyard. And if you look at this list of things, we can probably pick that it's likely overwhelmed or flooded with information, lack of motivation, not enough reinforcement, confused, not quite sure what you're doing, why you're doing that with them, or trying to get them to do something different. We talk about potty training all the time, and getting our pups to go potty outside is a human construct, right? We want them to go potty outside, not on our rugs and floors inside. They will go where we teach them to go, but they will just naturally need to go, though. And so if we're not taking them out frequently, not reinforcing enough out there, they're going to continue to go inside. It's not because they're going, nana, nana, boo-boo, I'm going to pee on your floor just to make you mad. They don't have that reasoning capability. It's a very complex thought process. They would have to first know what they're not supposed to do and deliberately plan the attack against you, so to speak. Could you imagine if they were that complex? We would be in trouble.
We would be. They really aren't as complex as that. Definitely they can, do things like sniffing bums and finding people who are lost, and they can use those noses, but that has been trained for them, and it's a much more instinctual behavior. Going potty outside, they're like, I don't care. I'll do it because you told me that it was a good thing to do, and good things happen when I do it, and now it's become habit. But human, it doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah. So aversive techniques or scaring them into doing things or not enough reinforcement. This isn't, like I looked at Scott's. That's what kind of prompted me to kind of dive into that thought here. Yeah, this isn't our channel. We our whole philosophy on training, we don't use those aversive techniques to try to teach our dogs. Science has proved that there are far better ways to teach our dogs instead of inflicting pain to try to get them to do something. So,
or even fear, or being startled. I mean, that's what they use. Even if it's on vibrate, it doesn't hurt them. It can hurt them, and it's also very startling. It's just not an effective way to teach.
Yeah, I'm going to take Encorns in just a moment, but to add on to that, Allison, we actually had one of our students telling us that she was only using the vibrate on the collar, and she was sitting on the couch relaxing with her dog, collar not on, and her phone vibrated on the couch, and the dog freaked out, flipped out, couldn't even settle down. And so to me, that's a fallout. That's a fallout effect, and we never know sometimes when those fallouts happen. They could happen 1 day later, 2 weeks later, 1 year later. You never know. And I would hate for that to happen to anybody at any time. And for a dog to live kind of in that is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? That actually makes our dogs unhealthy. I could get into a whole health and wellness lesson about gut health and behavior and all that kind of stuff, but I won't today. But just know when your dog is in that steady state of of what if or overwhelm or worry, it makes for a very unhealthy dog, which also then leads to more behaviors that are overwhelming and confusing for the human.
That's also where the complexity isn't there. You know, the dog is like, ooh, scary object that vibrates that made me startle. And that human is near there. And so now it's kind of all connected. The dog doesn't recognize that, oh, the human has a phone and it's not the human and it's something separate.
Right.
It's all connected to the dog. They're like, ow, scary thing, human, I'm not comfortable with any of this. So now we're just seeing that breakdown of relationship. And this is just going to make that training so much harder.
Yeah. All right, we're at the tail end here of our presentation. We're going to take questions here. Just before I do, I forgot to mention, if you are new to us, there are some resources that could be really helpful for you. We have our free new puppy starter kit. You're already on our YouTube channel here. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you get notified when our next video goes live. We have one that's coming out later this week, so be sure you subscribe so you can get notified. Our free Better Puppy Behavior Workshop, this is another really popular one that people like to learn more about how their dog thinks and learns and how to kind of work through those unwanted behaviors, a little deeper dive into what we talked about today. And of course, we have our program that we've mentioned throughout this presentation. Right here, I clicked on it and then I had to click off real fast. I want to come back to it. I'm looking for advice on helping my collie not chase the kids and jump on them. My niece has special needs and she's a runner. My dog is literally twice her size. How can I break him of this? Yeah, and so this is what we were kind of talking about is our dogs are naturally drawn to movement. And so you're balancing both teaching the kids what to do, but also teaching the puppy what to do. What do you want the puppy to do in the presence of those kids? And what do you want the kids to do so that they're not encouraging that jumping behavior? The other thing is, are we giving the dog the right outlet to chase? So do they have opportunities to chase appropriate things like flirt poles, rope toys, potentially even if your dog is a little bit older, maybe a lure course, something like that. Mm-hmm. So making sure there's a balance of training and management as well for both of them. If this happens a lot outside, we might say that we're only going to send one kid out at a time with the puppy and making sure we're sending the kid out with the appropriate toy to engage with them. If this is continual, we want to make sure we're supervising too. That way you can catch any interactions that aren't cool and that you could redirect the puppy before it even gets to that point. So that's where we were talking about a few moments ago, that prevention portion of it, where I was sharing the slide here. So this jumping, type of behavior, what can we do to prevent it instead of the reactivity portion of it from the human? So this might be puppy stays on a leash so there's no chasing going on, or again, blocking off access to the dogs going out, or the dog going out when the kids are out there, something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Let's take this question. 13-week-old Jack Russell potties outside, but can't get a hand on her after that. Sounds like that maybe human is ready to head inside, trying to kind of bring her back inside, or maybe they're trying to pick her up and bring her inside. But it sounds like she won't follow you.
Won't follow me inside. Okay. So, okay. I see. So for me, this is, what have we done to, well, first and foremost, have we made sure that puppy doesn't need to go anymore? Because sometimes, they do need to, like I had a double peer. She really needed to go twice before she came back inside. So sometimes our dogs are telling us, hey, I need to go more. The other thing it could be is if you are trying to pick her up, she might have a negative association of how she's being handled, whether you're trying to like lift her up and pick her up and squeeze her to kind of carry her in. So I would work on, let's see here, our 1, 2, 3 pattern game that we've taught before. That I can share a clip to that. We also give credit where credit's due to the person who actually created that game in that video. So I'll have Caitlin share that with you. The other thing is, what have you done to create this positive association once you've come back inside? So that's another thing too. If our pups have learned that when they come back in, they just get put in the crate, or we go about our normal business and we kind of, not that we're ignoring them, but maybe we have some other things we need to do. Have we done anything though when they come back in to include some engagement with us, and then do a cool down and then put them in their crate for a nap or something? So I would say we've got a bunch of different things we could potentially try, and I would have to have, you know, a little bit more of a conversation with you on that to really know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Let's take this one. We haven't really talked about chasing cars. That's definitely one we want to try to help, huh?
Yeah. This one is we need a whole lesson or multiples on helping this. I can give you some pointers to get you started though. If our puppy is doing what we call tipping over threshold, they're getting to the point where they're now reacting to the thing, the trigger. We have a lot of work to do to, one, counter condition it, meaning create a positive association, because their mind right now thinks, get the thing, or the thing stresses me out. I don't like the thing. I might be trying to make the thing go away. So there's a variety of things that could be happening in that regard. The other thing is keeping the puppy under threshold, which means not allowing the puppy, this is part of the prevention, not allowing the puppy access to be able to do that any longer. Not right now, because we're not ready for it. Puppy doesn't have the positive association we want them to have with that car. So to keep our puppy safe, especially a Yorkie, one, making sure puppy's on leash. Two, making sure that we're not going and putting puppy in that kind of environment where they see the car and then they feel like they need to react to it. So when we try to find what the threshold is, this is the point in which our puppy can, it's sometimes distance, it's duration, it's the distraction level. There's a variety of things. But if they tip over that threshold, they've gone too far, we want to start working back behind that kind of imaginary line, that magic line. And this might include sitting in a vehicle in a parking lot, at the back of the parking lot, watching vehicles go by. The puppy sees a vehicle go by, they get the tasty treats. As soon as the vehicle goes by, the treats stop. So it might be something just like that to start with. But if we're getting, if the puppy's reacting, we're over threshold at that point.
Mm-hmm. Let's just take this last question. It's really an interesting one. I'd love to hear what you think. Jamie says it seems harder to train an 8-week-old half-pound toy breed than a larger 8-week-old 3-pound breed. Is there any pattern to that, do you think, Michelle?
Let me see this again. Harder to train an 8-week-old half-pound toy breed than So I would need to know more about the two different dogs. I mean, is one too? Hold on, I'm formulating some thoughts here. It's all coming at me at once in my brain.
This is a deep one.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure whether maybe Jamie was talking about potty training or just training in general.
Yeah, I would say, what is this dog's previous history of anything, any socialization or exposure training? That's number one. That's what I would. So where did they come from? Did they come from a reputable breeder that already started to work on these things? Or were they from a rescue group that tried their very best, but just, they had a rough life by the time they got to the rescue group? So we could have some stuff that happened even before you got the puppy. We could have stuff that's going on in the environment. So maybe it's two different dogs, two different environments. Maybe one's more stressful to that dog. Our dogs are sentient beings. So that means they have their own likes, dislikes, preferences. They have things that, set them off that could be different than another dog. And so when it seems like it's harder to train, is it because it's the environment? Is it because it's the training traits? Is it because the handler's mechanics might be off, which is pretty common? With our smaller dogs, we're tending to tower over the top of them when we go to pet them, give them treats, engage with them in any way, or you're right, or picking them up. And so I would say that there's some stuff there that we would need to figure out as well. Better question would be, what do you want these guys, what are you trying to train them on, and what can we help you with in that regard?
Yeah,
that would be
And there's just genetics. I mean, we just don't know about, you know, the mama dog and the papa dog and the breeds that kind of come with certain traits that aren't, you know, for sure in every single dog with that breed, but it can definitely play a role. You know, what they're kind of bred to do in history. It will play a role in kind of what their strengths and weaknesses might be. Again, you kind of have to balance that with that could be, but what is it with my own individual dog? And that is something I just want to mention this. I love this series that you're doing, Michelle, on. We're doing a series on different breeds on this YouTube channel of kind of digging into different breeds and kind of learning a little bit more about their history, which can kind of tell us like, oh, well, that is interesting. That could be part of why they act the way that they do. It is not all of it. Breed is not nothing, but it is not everything.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting as we talked about labs and German Shepherds. And I think we've got one coming out soon on another breed that you guys might want to be interested in.
Yeah, you mentioned the breed a little bit, but it's also for that question that was just posed to us. What's the dog's schedule look like? When are you trying to train too? I mean, that could play a part in it. If you're trying to train just as they've woken up and they have a ton of energy, they're not going to be able to focus as much as if we drain out some of that energy. And then they're you know, going to be able to focus more.
Yeah. And of course, how long have they been home? An 8-week-old puppy may have been home.
Yeah. We got to give them some.
They might be just more confident than others based on maybe what their environment was like at the breeder or the rescue. Maybe they just, you know, had a little bit more exposure to new things. And so they're kind of getting settled a little bit easier in the new home. Whereas the other dog maybe had more limited exposure and things are still a little more new and a little scary. There's a lot to dig into on that one. I would love to just like chat with Jamie and get all the details.
Also, is it Spectrum Auto Spa here? I'm going to have Caitlin share the newer leash training video with you that we have. That one might be helpful because we've run out of time for today's lesson, but I want to at least point you in the right direction. If any of you guys did have a question that we didn't get to, I apologize about that. You can definitely join us over at the free Facebook group, Puppy Training with Michele Lennon. We can dive into things a little deeper with you there, at least share some resources or get you started anyway. If you're looking for even more support or more help on how to work on things or what order to teach your puppy stuff, obviously our 30-Day to Puppy Perfection program would be the next awesome step for you. I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your day. I hope to see you on our next live. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember. Is it Puppy Blues?
Oh, I think it is Puppy Blues. That would be a good one.
That's a big one. Yeah, a lot of people feel a little overwhelmed when they bring their puppy home. We're going to talk about what to do to help you through that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you in the next live. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.